And just like that, we are back. Welcome to this week's episode of Hump Day Holla, our weekly podcast where we keep you up to date on everything that is going on in the real estate market. Welcome in James Parker, my incredible co-host. And on the show, we're going to talk about, let me lower myself here with that graphic going across my forehead. Today on the show, we are going to talk a little bit more about just kind of really what are we seeing in the market, right? When we're looking at everything, where's it going? Is the information we getting? Is it what we want? Is it what we need? So we're going to discuss that and more. So welcome to the show. James, how's your week going so far since Saturday, man? Everything good?
This is sort of cruise control time of year. We don't have any big holidays. Easter's going to happen another week or so. But we
Yeah.
got out of all the Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, Super Bowl, Mardi Gras, St. Patrick's Day. We're out of that. We can autopilot all the way to summer. That's where I'm at. I'm
Nice.
in autopilot to summer.
So you'll take that then, is what you're saying. You don't mind it right now.
Yeah, I get about 6 weeks of routine, and then it gets upended because I got to deal with kids.
Yep. Well, for us, normally this is, in the mortgage industry, we're heading into what they consider the spring home buying season. And, we're starting to get some data, very data rich. That's what we're all about here. And we're starting to get some data and kind of explaining why things are going to be, I think, as summer approaches, I think it's going to be what I'm hoping or what I see as a good opportunity. And, reason being is, hey, the Fed stopped on the hikes. So we're going to see what happens there and the oil stuff. There's a lot of other factors that we've got to hope on. But, one of the things that just came out this morning, this is hot off the press, is the ADP jobs report. And, the great news is, guess what? Interest rates are back where they were. They're at 2-month lows right now. So if you remember, last time we were kind of getting back in this area is when that jobs report came back where they found this 800,000 people that had jobs in 2022. And instead of putting them into 2022's numbers, they just threw it all into January. And remember, all of a sudden the report comes out and we had 800 and something thousand new jobs. Well, it absolutely destroyed everything, right? So we're battling back from that. So looking at job creations in March was 145,000 versus 210,000. So that's a miss of 65,000.
210,000 expected?
Yes, 210,000 expected. So when you look at that, now they revised February's revision up 19,000. But when you look at that, it's kind of hard to celebrate job loss, right? It's really hard to celebrate that. But at the end of the day, this is what the Fed is measuring. This is exactly what the Fed is measuring to use as an inflation gauge is how many people are employed. If people are still hiring and things are going good, so to speak, we went over credit debt and where all that's at. So I don't know how we can see it, but they can't. They're using certain factors. So when we're looking at that, that's kind of where we're at.
Look at you, change it up with the old, with the no, change it up.
What's that? All right. So, and out of those 145,000, 98,000 of it you're looking at was leisure and hospitality, right? So, those are things we're going to keep an eye on. Listen to this. Job stayers was at 6.9%, down from 7.2%. And job switchers was at 14.2% from 14.4%. So I think people are starting to see, hey, where I'm at is a good place. They're maybe not necessarily chasing that extra dollar. And we're starting to see the job market level out. And really, I think there's more pain that's going to happen here. We've seen it. We know it. It's just a matter of when will it happen and when will the Fed start to kind of agree with what we've been chatting about here on Mortgage Gumbo. What's your thoughts, James?
Well, I want to know what you think. What does this mean for interest rate hikes? Because, if they keep hiking the interest rate, pain is going to follow necessarily. And if they think this slowdown is enough of the gear sort of grinding, then maybe they don't feel the need to keep hiking the rate.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we continue to get, if April's jobs report comes out and then May jobs report before they meet again on May 10th, if those job reports come back kind of like this, then I think we're going to see something where it may be in our favor, right? So, we're going to be keeping an eye on that for you here at Mortgage Gumbo and getting that information out to you, along with watching what's going on with the inflation numbers, right? I think as we get into May and into this summer, we're gonna see some good things happening with that. Some other numbers that have come out too, James, is this. Just at the end of the year in December or in January, refinances. This gives you an idea how many people are living on the edge right now, my man.
Right.
In Gumbo Nation, 82% year over year refinances were down in January. In February, it was 63%. Remember? And we said, everybody was like, oh my God, that's still high. That's 20% less than what it was the previous month and from a year over year. Well, guess what? It went down again even in March. It went down from 63 to 58. In March, we saw rates kind of creep up a little bit. So I think what you're seeing is, what did we talk about a couple weeks ago on debt? Debt is something that is real. That elephant in the room. People are using those credit cards. People are out there. Come to mention, it's only going to get a little bit tougher now that we haven't, and these are life events. Now that we haven't renewed, this is something that the media's kind of just brushed under the rug, James, that we didn't renew this deal with OPEC, man. And, this has an effect on inflation. So here we are talking about jobs, and here we are advising the Gumbo Nation on what things should look like, right? All right, hey, if these jobs reports, then yeah, the Fed should stay where they're at. Well, what's going to happen when gas prices go up? Is that inflationary, or are people going to stay home and restaurants, bars, everything like that's going to start struggling, right? So that's the wait and see. But it's a big deal that we broke our promise to the Saudis. They're not happy about us. They've written us off. So that's something that obviously there's so many. That's what's amazing, and that's what I love about this podcast, because I can ramble a little bit here. Is James? It's just amazing on how all these things for 30 years of doing this are relevant now. Every time 1 + 1 was equaling 2, it doesn't now, man, and it's just kind of bewildering, man.
Well, the other thing that we've established through 8+ years of this show is how behind the calendar the Federal Reserve is by about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So if they have raised too much, which is a popular theory right now, and we won't know this for another 6 months. 6 months now from now, when we do know that they raised it too much, then we have to give the Fed, another maybe 3 months or 6 months to figure it out, admit they made a mistake, and reverse course. But what does that line up with? About 6 to 9 months from now, we are right in the middle of election season. Yeah. Right. So, and that'll give them about a 1 year to 9 month on ramp to lower the rates, if not slam them back down to zero. And everyone can go into the economic sugar high when they're casting their ballot.
Yeah, I think that's something that's truly we're going to have to keep an eye on. Now, here's what I can tell you. People are putting in applications. I'm seeing a lot of people, or talking to a lot of people, and I want to be clear here. You don't have to be sitting on the sideline right now, or you shouldn't be. Okay? SnapSendAndSave.com allows you to find out. Get rid of the guesswork. I know there's a lot of theories out there, and if you watch the media, everything's horrible. Why buy? Rates are high, this, that, and the other. Right now, more than ever, credit shouldn't be something that you are concerned about. You need to get with somebody, get with us. We do a free credit review for you, a free financial wellness check for you, free buying power check, and it costs you nothing. And right now is the time you need to be doing that. Because right now, those credit cards that you're using that are over 30%. And why do we say credit usage of 30%? Because we know when you're below that, that's how you maximize your score. So let's look at certain things now and start guiding you now So when the time is right in your mind, maybe that raise that you're waiting on, or to get when you get these tax returns, a lot of people are about to have extra money coming in. You don't want to come to me when you find that house and find out you can't get it done. I've got to make a call, James, when we hang up this phone right now. Dad's a big listener of the show. Sent daughter over. She went to another lender, told her she was approved, got under contract for $300,000. James, she don't qualify. The lender used incorrect income.
Boo.
How bad is that? They've already done inspections, right?
Oh man. So they're out all the money it costs for that.
So
And,
she's out $600 there.
and she's not gonna get the house she wants now.
And no, not even close. And it's just, and this is where, again, love the Gumbo Nation to keep spreading it. And Dad knew something didn't seem right, right? He's a show listener. He's like, hey, you need to call us. You need to call Dwayne, because based on what you make income wise, I can't see how you can go afford a $300,000 house, right? But maybe I'm wrong. And sure enough, and this is what we're still amazingly dealing with. So find out, remove any doubt, folks. It's free. There's no cost, no obligation. MortgageGumbo.com. Let's have a free chat. It costs you $0 to see what you need to do to get your numbers and find that out.
I have a couple quick questions before we do North Shore versus South Shore.
All right, go ahead.
Number one, I have a couple who is looking to buy a house, but one of them just lost their job. How hard is it to get into a home or get into a qualify for a mortgage if only one of the married couple is working?
It does not hard at all. It just depends on what their income. Obviously, they would lose some buying power. Now, if she lost her job, but she turns around and gets a new job and there's not some gap, then we're good to go. Once she's at her new job or his new job for 30 days, we can use those pay stubs and we're golden. We understand that people lose their jobs.
What's the gap?
It just depends. I mean, if it goes 6 months, then we just got to kind of know what's going on, but we work around that now. I mean, so there's some leeway in that, where there never used to be, but ever since COVID, there's some leeway there, especially with FHA loans.
Can one qualify for a mortgage if they are single and don't have a job?
No,
Just
it's kind of, you got to be able to pay that loan back, right?
Well,
I mean,
like if you inherited like a big pile of assets and you're like, I got $1 million, I just don't want to use it all on a house, and I would rather, take a mortgage out and keep my pile.
now we do have, now that's a whole different ballgame. That's we've got some programs there where we look at and see exactly what you've got in assets, and we can go from there. Now, we've got to look still, you're going to have the ability to repay. So there's going to have some kind of income coming in, right? But we don't have to verify it, right? So there's some different programs we can do there.
And these aren't based on any scenarios in my real life experience. I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing too, I want my listeners to understand this, Gumbo Nation, listen, there's down payment assistance programs out there. I'm not big on them because they lock you into some things. It all sounds good. People, I saw a thing this morning. It said, first time home buyer, find out about down payment assistance. So I clicked on it to see what it was. It was a realtor leading to her website, right? So, you know what I mean? So there's some programs out there. You just got to find out what they are and do you qualify? And most folks don't. There's some little caveats. Those programs are set up to get 1 or 2 particular types of buyers, and we can't always make that happen. All right, let's do North Shore, South Shore, and then we'll get on our way, bro.
All right. In today's Dwayne's segment of judgment, we are going to pit on one side of the court, the North Shore. On the other side of the court, I don't know which one's the plaintiff or the defendant. I don't know what these words mean, but the other side's the South Shore.
All right.
And this is a decision everyone who wants to live in the New Orleans area has to make when you're going to buy a home. Do you live on the North Shore or do you live on the South Shore? I mean, how many thousands of people are making this decision right now?
And these opinions are purely for entertainment purposes. Don't hold it against me. Like, don't think just because if I say North Shore, South Shore, it doesn't mean I want to help you get your loan on either side, right?
Right. And I don't want to be a weenie here, but of course we're going to come to the conclusion that, it depends on who you are and what you prefer, and everyone's situation is different. So there's not going to be a hardcore which one's better. Yep. But let's just go through some pros and cons here. And I want to be very negative today. People don't like to say they don't like negativity, but they do. Let's start with the negatives. All right. So the negatives of living on the South Shore: schools. If you're relying on public schools, they're not as good as the North Shore.
Your challenge.
If you're going to go to one of the better schools, it's private school, it's going to cost you.
It's going to cost you.
And hey, I'm glad it's a great school, but costing you is still a negative. Crime is a little more rampant. You have to deal with people pulling on your door handles if you park on the street. If you live in the South Shore, North Shore, not so much. The roads are just god awful. It looks like Beirut, 1981, on most of the South Shore. Also on the South Shore, one of the things I did not appreciate about versus the North Shore, because I lived on both sides of the lake, so I know. You just don't have any space. Like the houses are like this far apart for most of the city.
Yeah.
And man, you can actually have a yard if you want to have dogs, multiple dogs, or if you want your kids to like actually have a swing set and stuff. So space is a big one. And then pets are a deal breaker for a lot of people. If you want to have anything bigger than like a dog or a cat or maybe a couple of chickens, you kind of have to live somewhere other than New Orleans, maybe in the far West Bank or North Shore. Is probably more likely to suit you. But if you want to have a horse or some goats or something, you just can't live on the South Shore. So that's the negatives.
Right.
How am I doing so far?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying there. I think it's just, again, all right, so you're going with the negatives. All right, go ahead. So far, so good. Go ahead.
All right, now let's beat up on the North Shore a little bit.
All right, what you
All
got?
right, North Shore, you're all high and mighty. Let's talk about what it's like to live up there.
All right.
The number one horrible thing about living on the North Shore is that god awful commute. And I know it's just, the bridge 24 miles,
Yeah.
and worth it for a standard of living, and it's for the schools. I'm doing it for the kids.
It's therapy. It's therapy when you're driving home.
Yeah, bro. I did that. I commuted over the bridge for a while, and what it feels like in reality is 2 hours out of your life every day are just like, for this one decision you made years ago, it is costing you 2 hours of your waking life every day.
All right.
Then one of the other negatives about the North Shore versus the South Shore is the North Shore, your social scene sucks. You have a cool people, some cool places to hang out, but you don't have what New Orleans has.
No, the North Shore is Familyville, straight up. As a single guy, I'll tell you, it's Familyville. I mean, the North Shore is a great place to raise your family.
Yeah, and look, if you're one of the guys that wants to tie one on and go to the after party, there's nowhere to go at 3 a.m. in Covington. You got to go home. You got to go to someone's house. That's
Waffle House.
So the social scene on the South Shore just can't compare. I mean, on the North Shore can't compare to the South Shore.
All right.
Also, on the South Shore, if you're into this, they have cool old historic homes, and the North Shore has some history there, but you're not going to find a whole lot of 100-year-old buildings, that got renovated with sort of the industrial pipes going through the refurbished building or whatever. So
I don't like creaky buildings, so that's why I'm a North Shore guy, right? You know what I mean? You don't sell me on what's that, nostalgia or history.
Same.
I
think a lot of people disagree with this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
One of the other things about people that I've noticed have moved to the North Shore is a lot of them are from the South Shore or St. Bernard or the West Bank or Metairie or something, and they have that is a huge disconnect. That one lake completely disconnects them from their family and friends in a way that they're not as comfortable with as they thought. Just meeting someone for a happy hour after work, or your mom wanted to let you borrow the air fryer because yours broke. There's a bridge there.
It's an event. It's an event when you do that. And I mean, look, the North Shore, to me, who's from the South Shore and now has lived on both, the North Shore to me, growing up, this was country, right? This was almost like a whole nother world. I can remember Chalmette, we came over to play Mandeville, and I'm like, man, we're going to the country. Now you realize it was a 45-minute drive from Chalmette at the time, but it seemed like, my gosh, we're heading out to the country. So, I think. Yeah, I mean, I see your negatives there, but at the end of the day, I mean, social scene, it just depends. I mean, look, as a single guy, like I said, it's not party central here by any means.
How bad is I-12? We have a comment here.
I see that.
I-12 is the worst.
I-12 right now, especially in between Mandeville and Madisonville, where they're extending the bridge now. They've been doing it for about 5 years, where they're adding extra lanes. It's been an absolute nightmare. I think that'll relieve some things as we continue to go forward.
Yeah, and the other bottleneck that I had a hard time with on the North Shore is how all of Covington bottlenecked to this one bridge
Yeah.
over the Bogachita or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And at the wrong time of day, that is the worst bridge in America to wait on.
It can be. There's no doubt it can be. No. Yep.
All right. So if someone comes to you and they're like, listen, I qualify for $300 worth of house and I got a family of 4, North Shore versus South Shore. Are you leaning toward one way, or are you seeing them lean toward
Well,
one?
that's where we start having the conversation. Where's the job? Is remote an option? Is a remote option in the future? How old are the children? Right? Because what people don't understand, that when I'm having conversations with folks and everyone goes, my God, so detailed, because I don't fill in blue boxes. We're a fiduciary. But if you've got a 2 or 3-year-old, we've got to talk about preschool, and we've got to talk about, so if you're on the South Shore, you've got to start looking at, all right, hey, and actually on any of the public schools over there or anything like that, right? You could read up about them all day on your own. But most folks are going to go, all right, hey, I want to do private. All right, well, that's net 10, 12, 15 grand a year per kid, starting at about 5, 6 years old, right? So you've got to start figuring that out, and where does that come into play? So, if you're the same person, so to speak, looking at things, sometimes the North Shore offers a little bit more, maybe a little bit of a break on flood insurance, different things like that. We just got to sort of, that all comes into play. But my whole job is to present options from a financial standpoint and talk about what does the future look like financially. Because again, buying a house, when you use a mortgage gumbo, buying a house is a wealth building tool, right? So we want to use that to your advantage. When we're helping you build wealth and buying that home, that is the whole reason why you're buying a home and putting a roof over your head, is to build wealth. That's why people today, even in this environment with rates a little higher, people are still buying houses, and houses prices have still gone up, because people understand their return is going to be there, and there's nothing better to own than real estate.
Yeah, and so my final judgment is that if money's not an object, if you are just floating in cash and all of the things are being equal, you don't have a whole lot of family or friends on one side or the other. I think what really tips the scale here between the North Shore and South Shore debate is that on the South Shore, you can walk outside with a beer, and I think that's the deciding factor.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and look, I've had friends that were busted. They grew up on the South Shore, and they came to Covington, and they walked out of the green room, and they were like, "Excuse me, where are you going?"
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You
Yeah.
go with that beer.
No doubt about it.
All right.
No doubt about
Hey,
it.
so I just want to chum the water a little bit for what's coming up on Saturday. We had the home prices jump. I saw home pricing here. This is from CNBC. Home prices suddenly jump after several months of decline. We got a bunch of negative economic news overall this week, but this is kind of positive, if not for the economy as a whole, at least for the housing, kind of, right?
Yep. No, absolutely. And we'll discuss that in detail. Again, this goes into what are we seeing in headlines versus what's really going on in the real estate market. So we'll definitely chat about that and more. So we will see you on Saturday. Till then, Gumbo Nation, keep stirring the pie.